Have you ever wondered why your prayers sometimes feel like they're bouncing off the ceiling, never quite reaching heaven? Why? Despite your sincerity and desperation, there seems to be an invisible wall between you and the God you're crying out to. What if everything you've been taught about where to find God has been fundamentally backwards? For most of my life, I believed God was somewhere out there, a distant judge sitting on a throne in some far-off realm, occasionally tuning in to hear my requests when he wasn't too busy running the universe. I would pray harder, longer, more intensely, thinking that if I could just get his attention, if I could just reach him through the cosmic distance, then maybe he would answer. Has this ever happened to you? That crushing feeling of spiritual abandonment when you need divine intervention the most? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Here's the revolutionary truth that changed everything for me. The problem was never that God was far away. The problem was that I was looking in the wrong direction entirely. Smith Wigglesworth, one of the most powerful men of faith in modern history, understood something that most Christians completely miss. He discovered that the kingdom of heaven isn't a destination you arrive at after death. It's a reality you access right now, in this present moment, because it already exists within you. Think about that for a second. Everything you've been reaching for, everything you've been begging God to send down from heaven is already present in the depths of your being. The power, the peace, the provision, the presence. It's not coming from somewhere external. It's waiting to be recognized and released from within your own consciousness. This isn't some new age philosophy or positive thinking mumbo-jumbo. This is biblical truth that Smith Wigglesworth demonstrated through countless miracles, healings, and supernatural manifestations. He didn't have some special hotline to God that you and I don't have access to. He simply understood where God actually lives. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover will completely transform how you pray, how you believe, and how you experience God's power in your everyday life. Most believers spend their entire lives feeling spiritually impoverished while sitting on a gold mine of divine resources. They're like someone dying of thirst while standing in a river, simply because they don't realize the water is already surrounding them. The greatest spiritual breakthrough isn't learning how to reach God. It's learning how to recognize that you're already living in His presence. What would change in your life if you stopped trying to pull God down from heaven and started releasing the kingdom that's already within you? What miracles might manifest if you approached each challenge, not as someone begging for help, but as someone accessing the infinite power that already dwells in your spirit? The answer to these questions begins with understanding a truth so simple, yet so profound, that it has eluded countless sincere believers for generations. The moment you understand this shift, everything changes. Your entire approach to prayer undergoes a complete transformation. Instead of coming before God as a beggar pleading for scraps from heaven's table, you begin to recognize that you're already seated at the feast. You're not asking God to become present. You're acknowledging the presence that has never left you. This is the hidden truth that separates those who merely practice religion from those who experience genuine spiritual power. Smith Wigglesworth didn't spend hours begging God to move. He spent his time recognizing that God had already moved, that divine reality was already established, and that his role was simply to align his consciousness with what was already true. When he approached a sick person, he wasn't hoping God might show up to heal them. He was operating from the unshakable awareness that healing was already present, waiting only for recognition and release. This mindset shift has a profound impact on how you navigate your daily life. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning not wondering if God will help you through the challenges ahead, but knowing with absolute certainty that divine consciousness is the very essence of your being. Every decision you make, every conversation you have, every obstacle you encounter becomes an opportunity to demonstrate spiritual reality rather than beg for it. The journey from spiritual poverty to spiritual abundance isn't about God finally deciding to bless you. It's about you finally deciding to recognize what has always been yours. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. We dive deep into kingdom consciousness and how it transforms your daily life, your relationships, finances, health, and decisions. Now here's where most people get confused. They think this sounds like positive thinking or some kind of mind over matter philosophy where you just convince yourself everything is fine when it's clearly not. But that's not what we're talking about at all. This is practical mysticism that produces tangible, measurable results in the physical world. We're talking about transformation in your health, your finances, your relationships, your inner peace. Not because you're pretending problems don't exist, but because you're accessing a dimension of reality that transcends those problems. The revelations that come from this understanding are staggering. When you stop operating from the consciousness of separation and lack, when you stop trying to convince an external deity to intervene in your circumstances, something supernatural begins to happen. You tap into the infinite intelligence and power that already dwells within your spirit. Solutions appear that your limited human thinking could never have engineered. Doors open that no amount of human effort could have unlocked. Resources flow from unexpected sources because you're no longer blocking the natural abundance of the kingdom with your consciousness of limitation. Behind the scenes of every miracle Smith Wigglesworth performed was this fundamental recognition. God isn't distant, God is present. The kingdom isn't coming, the kingdom is here. Power isn't something you acquire through spiritual achievement. It's something you release through spiritual awareness. This isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about recognizing what you've always been but never realized. Now I want to go even deeper into how this recognition actually works in practical, everyday situations. Because understanding the principle is one thing, but knowing how to apply it when you're facing real challenges, real pain, real problems, that's where the rubber meets the road. If this concept of recognizing God's presence within rather than reaching for it externally is resonating with something deep in your spirit, write in the comments, I recognize the kingdom within. Let me show you exactly how this works in real time. The first practical step in this journey is what Smith Wigglesworth lived by every single day. The practice of the presence. This isn't complicated theology or some mystical technique that requires years of training. It's actually beautifully simple. The moment you open your eyes each morning, before your mind gets flooded with the day's demands and worries, you pause for just a few seconds and acknowledge this truth. The kingdom of heaven is within me right now. This divine consciousness is my true nature. That's it. No elaborate ritual, no hour-long prayer session, just a simple recognition. But here's the hidden truth about transformation that most people miss completely. Consistency beats intensity every single time. You're far better off spending 30 seconds acknowledging this reality every morning for a month than you are having one passionate 3-hour prayer marathon and then forgetting about it for weeks. The impact comes through repetition, through building a new pattern in your consciousness, through rewiring your default mindset from separation to presence. What happens behind the scenes when you do this consistently is remarkable. Your brain literally begins to create new neural pathways. Your first response to situations starts to shift. Instead of your automatic reaction being fear, worry, or reaching outward for help, you begin to naturally turn inward to recognize the divine reality that's already established. This isn't about suppressing human emotion or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about anchoring yourself in a deeper truth that exists beneath the surface of circumstances. Now here's where this becomes incredibly practical. Throughout your day, you're going to face challenges. That's just reality. Your boss might criticize your work unfairly. Traffic might make you late for an important meeting. An unexpected bill might arrive that throws your budget into chaos. Your child might get sick. A friend might betray your trust. Life doesn't stop throwing curveballs just because you've discovered spiritual truth. But your response to those curveballs can be completely different. In those moments, I'm talking about the real, messy, frustrating moments of daily life, you have a choice. You can spiral into reactive emotions, letting the circumstance dictate your state of mind, or you can take literally 30 seconds to return to the inner kingdom. Pause, breathe, and recognize that beyond the material appearance in front of you, there's a perfect spiritual reality. The kingdom within you hasn't been disturbed by the traffic, the bill, the criticism, or the diagnosis. The revelations that come from this practice are subtle at first, but profoundly transformative over time. You'll start noticing that situations that used to send you into panic now generate a strange sense of peace. Solutions begin appearing that you weren't mentally capable of generating through stress and worry. You'll find yourself making decisions from clarity instead of fear. Divine guidance becomes less of a desperate search and more of a natural flow. Your entire relationship with problems shifts because you're no longer facing them as a limited human being trying to survive. You're facing them as an expression of divine consciousness, recognizing its own power. The journey into this awareness doesn't require you to be perfect or to never experience human emotion again. It simply invites you to anchor yourself in something deeper than the waves on the surface. If you've ever experienced a moment of unexpected peace in the middle of chaos, even if you couldn't explain why, write in the comments, "I've felt that peace." Let me get specific about where this understanding has the most profound impact. When you're facing health challenges, this is where your spiritual consciousness gets tested most intensely. Physical symptoms have a way of dominating our attention, don't they? Pain is loud. Disease is frightening. Medical diagnoses can feel like prison sentences. And the natural human response is panic followed by an exclusive focus on material solutions. But here's what I need you to understand clearly. Recognizing spiritual truth doesn't mean rejecting medical wisdom. Smith Wigglesworth himself wasn't against doctors or medicine. What he understood was that healing operates on multiple dimensions simultaneously. When physical symptoms show up, your first move determines everything. Before you spiral into fear, before you let the diagnosis define your reality, you turn within and recognize this truth. In the kingdom of heaven within you, there is only wholeness, only divine perfection. The spiritual reality of your being has never been sick, has never been broken, has never been anything less than complete. This recognition opens channels for healing power that transcend material limitations. It's not that you ignore the physical body or refuse treatment. That would be foolishness, not faith. Instead, you address the physical needs from a completely different consciousness. You go to the doctor, you take the medicine if needed, but you do so from an awareness of spiritual wholeness rather than from a mindset of being a helpless victim to disease. This partnership between spiritual understanding and practical wisdom is where miracles consistently manifest. The hidden truth behind countless unexplained healings is this shift in consciousness. When you stop identifying yourself primarily as a sick body and start recognizing yourself as divine, consciousness temporarily experiencing physical symptoms, something supernatural becomes possible. Your decisions about treatment come from clarity rather than desperation. Your body's own healing mechanisms are no longer suppressed by fear and stress, and the infinite intelligence of the kingdom within you begins directing you toward exactly what you need. Now I want to show you how this same principle transforms your relationship with money and material supply, because this is where most believers experience the greatest disconnect between spiritual truth and daily reality. Financial pressure has a way of making spiritual principles feel irrelevant, doesn't it? When the bills are overdue, when creditors are calling, when you don't know how you're going to make it through the month. In those moments, talking about the kingdom within can feel like empty spirituality disconnected from harsh reality. But watch what happens when you apply this understanding correctly. A businessman I know faced complete financial devastation. His partner had embezzled funds, creditors were demanding immediate payment, bankruptcy seemed inevitable. Every external indicator screamed disaster. But instead of focusing exclusively on the crisis, he made a decision that changed everything. Each morning he spent time recognizing the truth of infinite supply within the kingdom consciousness, not as positive thinking or denial of the situation, but as acknowledgement of a deeper reality. Here's what unfolded behind the scenes. At first, nothing external changed. The bills kept coming. The pressure kept mounting. But something shifted internally. The paralyzing fear that had been blocking his ability to think clearly began dissolving. From this new awareness, creative solutions started emerging. He found himself having conversations he would have been too afraid to initiate before. Opportunities appeared that he couldn't have manufactured through manipulation or force. Within weeks, the entire situation transformed not through struggle, but through consciousness demonstrating its own abundance. The journey through financial challenges reveals something powerful about how spiritual reality manifests in the material world. If you've ever experienced unexpected provision appearing exactly when you needed it, write in the comments, "I've seen divine supply." Now let me be completely honest with you about something that trips up almost every person who discovers this truth. We live in a culture obsessed with instant results. We want microwave spirituality. 30 seconds and we're done, fully transformed, walking in complete kingdom consciousness. But that's not how this journey works, and pretending otherwise would be doing you a disservice. Smith Wigglesworth himself didn't wake up one morning with full supernatural power flowing through him. He spent years, literally years, developing this consciousness through consistent practice, meditation, study, and real-world application. Think about that for a moment. One of the most powerful men of faith in modern history, someone who saw the dead raised and the blind receive sight, still required time to develop his spiritual awareness. The transformation didn't happen overnight for him, and it won't happen overnight for you either. If this added value to your day, tap that like button. It helps more people discover these teachings. But here's what makes the journey worthwhile. Every single day of practice, even the days when you feel like nothing is changing, you're building something. It's like a child learning to walk. There are so many falls, so many wobbling attempts, so much apparent failure before that first confident step. Yet nobody looks at a toddler falling down and declares them a failure at walking. We understand it's a process, a natural development that requires patience and persistence. Your spiritual awareness strengthens the exact same way. Some days you'll maintain kingdom consciousness beautifully, experiencing that unshakable peace even in chaos. Other days you'll completely forget everything you've learned and spend hours in anxiety before you even remember there's a different way to approach the situation. This inconsistency isn't evidence that you're doing it wrong. It's the normal rhythm of growth. The path isn't a straight line upward. It includes plateaus where nothing seems to be happening, and even apparent setbacks where you feel like you're going backwards. The hidden truth about transformation is that the most significant changes happen beneath the surface long before they become visible. Behind the scenes, your consciousness is being rewired. New neural pathways are forming. Your default responses are shifting. You just can't see it yet. That's why so many people give up right before the breakthrough. They're judging progress by external circumstances instead of recognizing the internal shifts that are already occurring. What you need to watch for are the subtle transformations that reveal your growing awareness. These aren't dramatic, spectacular miracles that make you look twice. They're quieter, more intimate revelations. You'll notice one day that a situation which would have triggered intense stress 3 months ago now generates a surprising sense of peace. A problem that's been persistent suddenly has a solution appear that you couldn't have thought of through worry and struggle. You'll find yourself making decisions with a clarity and confidence that seems to come from somewhere deeper than your conscious mind. That's divine guidance operating through your growing spiritual awareness. These small changes might seem insignificant in the moment, but they represent something massive happening in your consciousness. You're beginning to live from kingdom awareness instead of purely from material perception. The world around you hasn't necessarily changed, but your relationship to it has fundamentally transformed. The impact of this shift touches every area of your life in ways you won't even recognize until you look back months from now and realize how different everything has become. If you're noticing small shifts in how you respond to life's challenges, even if they seem minor, write in the comments, "I see the subtle changes." The biggest mistake I see people make on this journey is giving up right when the real work is beginning. They approach kingdom consciousness with genuine enthusiasm, practice it for a week or two, and then when the miraculous breakthrough doesn't manifest immediately, they conclude it doesn't work. They abandon the practice and go searching for the next spiritual technique that promises faster results. This pattern repeats itself endlessly, and they never stay with anything long enough to experience real transformation. But here's what's actually happening behind the scenes during those initial weeks and months when nothing seems to be changing. Think about what occurs when you plant seeds in soil. The moment those seeds go into the ground, absolutely nothing visible happens. Days pass, sometimes weeks, and if you were judging based purely on what you can see, you'd conclude that nothing is working. In fact, if you got impatient and dug up those seeds to check on their progress, you'd destroy the very growth process you're trying to cultivate. Spiritual development operates on the same natural laws. The initial work happens beneath the surface of your conscious awareness, building a foundation that will eventually support visible transformation. But that foundation takes time to establish. The divine timing of manifestation doesn't align with your impatient demands for instant results. Every day of practice, even when you see nothing changing externally, is creating structural shifts in your consciousness that will bear fruit when the season is right. The people who experience genuine, lasting transformation aren't the ones who had the most dramatic initial experiences. They're the ones who persisted through the mundane middle, who kept recognizing kingdom consciousness even when circumstances seemed to contradict it, who trusted the process more than they trusted their limited perception of progress. Now I want to show you where this understanding becomes incredibly practical in daily life. Your relationships with other people. This is where kingdom consciousness either proves itself real or reveals itself as just another nice spiritual idea. Because let's be honest, it's easy to feel connected to divine presence when you're alone in your prayer closet. It's considerably more challenging when you're dealing with that coworker who constantly undermines you, that family member who knows exactly which buttons to push, or that neighbor whose behavior drives you absolutely crazy. The transformation that happens in relationships through this consciousness is remarkable. Instead of reacting to difficult people from a place of defensiveness, judgment, or withdrawal, you begin to recognize something profound. The divine presence exists within them too, not in some abstract theological sense, but as actual spiritual reality. That person irritating you right now has the kingdom of heaven within them, perfect and complete, even though their behavior at this moment doesn't reflect it one bit. This recognition doesn't mean you excuse harmful actions or allow yourself to be mistreated. It's not about being a doormat in the name of spirituality. What it does mean is that you're seeing beyond the surface behavior to the deeper truth underneath. Their stress, their fear, their fatigue, their pain, all of that is obscuring their divine nature, but it hasn't eliminated it. When you recognize this, your entire response shifts. Instead of matching their energy and escalating the conflict, you respond from compassion. You hold steady in your awareness of spiritual reality while they're temporarily lost in material consciousness. The impact of this shift is almost magical in how it transforms relationship dynamics. I've watched hostile interactions dissolve simply because one person maintained kingdom consciousness, while the other was caught in reactivity. If you've experienced a difficult relationship unexpectedly improve without any direct conversation about the conflict, write in the comments. I've seen relationships shift. What I love most about this way of living is that it doesn't require you to escape from daily life into some monastery or spiritual retreat. You don't have to abandon your responsibilities or withdraw from the world to experience kingdom consciousness. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. The decision to live from this awareness transforms the most mundane, ordinary moments into opportunities for profound spiritual recognition. Washing dishes at the sink stops being just another tedious chore and becomes a meditation on divine presence. You're not trying to make it spiritual or force some mystical experience. You're simply aware that the consciousness observing your hands moving through warm water is the same divine consciousness that created galaxies. Traffic delays that used to trigger frustration become unexpected gifts of space for inner communion. That 20 minutes stuck on the highway isn't wasted time anymore. It's an invitation to return to the kingdom within, to recognize spiritual reality while the world around you rushes and stresses. Even the challenging conversations that you used to dread become something entirely different. That difficult discussion with your teenager, that tense meeting with your boss, that uncomfortable confrontation with a friend, these aren't interruptions to your spiritual life. They're the very arena where spiritual consciousness proves itself real. Each interaction becomes an invitation to see beyond the surface tension to the spiritual reality present within both yourself and the other person. The hidden truth that most spiritual teachings miss is that ordinary life isn't the obstacle to spiritual awareness. It's the perfect training ground for it. Behind the scenes of every saint who ever walked this earth were thousands of ordinary moments where they chose to recognize kingdom consciousness instead of getting lost in material drama. Smith Wigglesworth didn't just operate in supernatural power during healing services. He cultivated that consciousness while working as a plumber, while dealing with business challenges, while navigating family dynamics. Now here's what happens when you persist with this practice over months and years. Something beautiful and almost imperceptible begins to unfold. The kingdom consciousness that initially required deliberate conscious effort starts becoming more natural. It's like learning to drive a car. At first, every action requires focused attention. You have to think about the steering wheel, the pedals, checking, mirrors, signaling. But eventually, driving becomes second nature. You do it without conscious thought because it's been integrated into your automatic responses. Your spiritual awareness develops the same way. After consistent practice, you'll notice one day that your first thought in a challenging situation isn't panic anymore. It's peace, not because you're trying to be spiritual or forcing yourself to respond correctly, but because kingdom consciousness has actually become your default perspective. The transformation happens so gradually that you don't notice it occurring in real time. It's only when you look back after 6 months or a year that you realize how fundamentally different your entire mindset has become. The journey through this evolution reveals something profound about how consciousness works. You're not creating something new or achieving some advanced spiritual state. You're simply removing the layers of conditioned thinking that have been blocking your natural awareness of what's always been true. The kingdom isn't something you're building. It's something you're uncovering. If your automatic responses to stress have shifted over time, even subtly, write in the comments, "My default is changing." One of the most dramatic transformations you'll experience shows up in your professional life. When kingdom consciousness becomes your natural state, your entire relationship with work undergoes a complete metamorphosis. Work stops being just a means of survival, a necessary burden you endure to pay bills. Instead, it becomes something far more meaningful, an authentic expression of divine creativity flowing through you into the world. Think about how most people approach their careers. They're operating from scarcity consciousness, constantly worried about job security, competing with colleagues for limited opportunities, stressed about whether they're doing enough or being enough. Every project feels like a potential threat to their position. Every challenge seems overwhelming because they're facing it as isolated individuals with finite resources and limited abilities. But when you're living from kingdom consciousness, the entire dynamic shifts. Those obstacles that would have previously overwhelmed you begin to feel like interesting puzzles to solve from spiritual awareness. A deadline that once triggered panic now becomes an opportunity to witness divine ideas emerging in perfect timing. A difficult client interaction that would have sparked defensiveness becomes a chance to demonstrate kingdom consciousness in action. You're no longer operating from scarcity. You're functioning from abundance. Not just financial abundance, though that often follows, but abundance of creativity, wisdom, energy, and innovation. The hidden truth behind every major breakthrough in human achievement is consciousness. Behind the scenes of brilliant inventions, creative masterpieces, and innovative solutions, there's always been someone who tapped into something beyond their individual thinking. When you recognize that infinite intelligence dwells within your own consciousness, you stop relying exclusively on your limited personal knowledge and start accessing wisdom that transcends your training and experience. This doesn't mean work becomes effortless or that challenges disappear. What changes is your relationship to those challenges. You're approaching them from creative possibility rather than limitation, from spiritual partnership rather than isolated struggle. The impact of this shift shows up in tangible ways: better decisions, more effective solutions, increased productivity that doesn't drain you, and a sense of fulfillment that money alone could never provide. Now I want to address what may be the most significant transformation of all. As this consciousness matures through consistent practice, you discover something that's absolutely priceless, an unshakable peace that doesn't depend on circumstances being perfect. This isn't positive thinking or emotional suppression. It's authentic spiritual awareness that remains steady through life's inevitable fluctuations. Financial setbacks still occur. You still address them, Take practical action. Make necessary adjustments. But you do it without the paralyzing fear that used to accompany money problems. Relationship difficulties still arise. You engage with them directly, have the difficult conversations, set boundaries when needed, but without the drama of emotional reactivity that used to make everything worse. Health concerns still appear. You seek appropriate medical care and take responsibility for wellness, but without the consuming worry that robs you of peace before anything is even diagnosed. This represents the maturation of spiritual understanding, moving from conceptual knowledge to lived reality. You're no longer just believing these truths intellectually. You know them from direct experience. You've tested kingdom consciousness through real challenges and found it faithful every time. If you've discovered a peace that remains even when circumstances are difficult, write in the comments, "I've found unshakable peace." So here we are at the end of this journey together, and if you've made it this far, I know this message resonated with something deep inside you. This isn't just another spiritual concept to add to your collection of knowledge. This is an invitation to live differently, to experience God in a way that transforms everything about how you navigate life. The truth is, we're all on this path together, learning to recognize what's always been present, discovering that the kingdom we've been searching for has been within us all along. And that's exactly why I create these videos, to walk alongside people like you, who are hungry for authentic spiritual transformation, not just religious theory. If this teaching spoke to your spirit, if you felt something shift in your understanding today, I'd genuinely love for you to be part of this community. Hit that subscribe button because we dive deep into these principles every single week, exploring how kingdom consciousness actually works in real life, in your relationships, your finances, your health, your daily decisions. This isn't surface-level content. We're going after the truths that actually change how you experience God's presence. And here's what I'd love to know. Leave a comment below saying, "This message was meant for me, so I know you stayed until the end." I read every comment, and there's something powerful about acknowledging when truth connects with your spirit. It's not just for the algorithm. It's because your engagement helps this message reach others who need to hear it just as much as you did. If this content added value to your day, gently tap that like button. It's a simple way to say this mattered, and it helps more seekers discover these teachings. There's a video right here that goes even deeper into maintaining this awareness throughout your daily routine. Practical steps for when life gets messy and kingdom consciousness feels distant. Click and continue with me over there, because what we've started today is just the beginning of a much bigger transformation. Until we meet again, remember, the kingdom of heaven is within you right now, this very moment, waiting only for your recognition.